Discipline is the number one thing that you can develop and adopt in order to really grow your wealth consistently over time. We found that the people that started saving money and investing money when they had a little were the same people that started investing more when they had more money. And on the contrary, the people that had a little bit of money and just spent it, the more money they made, the more they spent. That's why building wealth is truly a habit. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Candy Valentino Show. I'm so glad that you're tuning in with me today. As you know, I wrote at the end of 2022, I wrote the Wall Street Journal bestseller. Thank you guys so much for all of your support of the book of Wealth Habits. And we talked a lot about what you need to do as you were coming into a new year. So I wanted to talk about now the things that you need to do in order to really grow your wealth, in order to make more, save more, invest more money. And so if you read the book, you understand that I really broke down the habits of making money, because so often people think that they need to wait to make more money in order to start investing, in order to start saving, in order to start building that financial independence. But what we found through all the work and all the research and everything that we understand about behavior is money is far more about your habits and the behaviors that you adopt than it is about any amount that you have. You know, when we did 40 years of data, we really looked at all of the charts from back in the 70s until 2022 when we were doing all this work. And we found that the people that started saving money and investing money when they had a little were the same people that started investing more when they had more money. And on the contrary, the people that had a little bit of money and just spent it, the more money they made, the more they spent. That's why building wealth is truly a habit. What you do with a little will dictate what you end up doing with a lot. So we really broke down the habits into about six ordinary things that anybody can do. And I think it's more important to talk about them now too, because we're coming in to a different type of economy in 2024 as we go into an election cycle. And every election cycle, there are always these cyclical things that happen with interest rates, with the markets, with whether it's stock markets or average rate of returns, it all changes. So I wanted to be able to talk about this just openly about what you should be thinking about. First habit, of course, is always growing your wealth, right? And what this starts with are the 6 inches between your ears. So often we forget that what we catch in our environment can create our habits. What your parents did as a child or what communities you were involved with when you were growing up. Those are environments that you catch in life. That's why the iconic saying is it's caught, not taught. We catch experiences and behaviors and habits in our environment far more than we're actually taught them. So if you're not where you want to be with your money, if your net worth isn't where you feel that it should be, you may need to start by looking at what beliefs you have adopted along your life that aren't serving you now, what habits you've built that aren't serving you now. Because if you have the habit of wanting to go out and buying the fancy watch or the purse or a brand new car, I promise you that as you earn more money, you will spend more money in your life because you haven't developed the habit of discipline. Discipline is the number one thing that you can develop and adopt in order to really grow your wealth consistently over time. Which means is whatever you're earning right now. And I know that this is a tough time for a lot of people. So if you're listening to this and you have more month than you do money and you're making $30,000, $40,000 a year, I know people that are trying to live off of that with inflation and with groceries and gas prices soaring. If that's you, number one is first identifying, do you have any beliefs about money that is currently keeping you stuck where you are? And if that is you right now, I have empathy for you. I really do. I have compassion. I know a lot of people that struggle with this topic. And why? It's because none of us were given the tools to understand how money works. None of us were taught these principles. So we caught it in our environment. So the most important thing to do now is step one. Are the beliefs and habits that you have about money helping you make more, or are they keeping you broke? Because there are a lot of broke beliefs that people keep in their life, which prevents them from all of the hard work that they're trying to do. It prevents them from really creating the net worth that they want. So that's step one. Step two is adopting a new belief or a new habit. If the beliefs and habits that you currently have are not getting you where you want, well, insanity is the definition of continuing to do that. thinking you're going to get a new result. So what we need to do is develop a new behavior to create a new habit, which will then change our reality. So what would you need to think? What would you need to believe? What would you need to practice? What discipline would you need to have in order to create a different reality? And I'll tell you, I know a lot of entrepreneurs right now that are struggling. They've had their first down year in their first few years. They didn't hit the goals that they thought that they wanted to. And if that's you, first understand that you're not alone. Every single thing in life, whether it's our finances, our business, our relationships, always goes in seasons. There is no cycles, no market, no industry that perpetually has an upchart in perpetuity forever. So if you are having a down month or a down year, or you're just feeling like you're in a down cycle, the best thing to do is acknowledge that you're not alone and that you can change it. But what got you there is probably not what's going to get you out. The behaviors that you had, the disciplines that you had are not going to get you out of this, because oftentimes when times are good, which is what we just came out of, we came through after COVID, a lot of businesses had record high years and months and quarters. And because they didn't save in those really strong, great times, they come into more of a down season. They don't have the discipline. They haven't adopted the discipline in order to really grow out of it. That's why the rich typically get richer in down times, because they've developed the discipline to really save in the good times so they could double down in the bad. So the thing is important to remember is, one, you're not alone. Two, it's what you do next. Well, you're not going to like the answer, but I want you to stick with me here. Oftentimes, we know what we need to do, but our ego prevents us from doing it. You know, there are business owners that are listening to this. There are people that have full-time jobs that are listening to this. And maybe what you need to do is go out and get another one. Go out and get a side hustle. Go out and get a job to support your business. You know how many people I've talked to with and I'm talking hundreds of millions of dollars of net worth, billions of dollars of net worth, that at one time had to go work a job to put money into their business because of a downtime? Are you willing to do that? Are you willing to do whatever it takes to be successful? I don't know why there is this gray cloud right now over striving, over working hard, over doubling down, over hustling. It's like for some reason it became a buzzword that's now negative. Having discipline, going all in, working an extra job or a side hustle, or working a W-2 job in order to funnel money into your business, there is nothing wrong with that. So many ultra successful people that have true wealth, not the ones that you see online and on social media that flash their flashy stuff because they're in their first good year of something. Meanwhile, they don't tell you about that they had foreclosures, or that they lost their house, or they had cars repossessed, right? They're not sharing that. But what's important to know is people that have really sustained wealth, the ones that have gone through difficult times and seasons and still came out wealthy on the other end, have all made difficult decisions in order to sustain through the dark moments, because every single person that has ever built success has gone through seasons where they thought they were going to fail, or they almost did, or they thought that this was the end of it for them, but they kept going. So how you develop your resolve in times of challenge will really dictate not just if you're successful now, but if you're able to sustain success long term. And that brings us to a third point, is it really goes into the third habit of wealth habits, which is earning your way to wealth. If you're in a position right now that you say, Candy, look, I just can't invest. I can't really save 10%. I am on a shoestring budget. We're barely getting by. Well, then you might have the reality that you need to make more money. You might need that second job, or doing something else on the side, or picking up a freelance, or selling spaces that you own, or selling your services, whatever it may be. But it's having that reality that if your current situation is not where you want it to be, it is within your control to change it. It's easy to blame the economy or something else or a bad decision, but once we take responsibility, we get our power back to change their situation. So earning your way to more wealth is a really key principle in building wealth, because we need to make more in order to save more, in order to invest more. Which brings us to the fourth, which is saving your way to wealth. And look, anybody that tells you that you shouldn't save money, they're lying. They're wrong. every single person watching or listening to this right now, you have got to have a fallback fund, especially if you're an entrepreneur. Because if you're an entrepreneur and you have employees that depend on you and their families and their livelihoods depend on you, and you don't have at least a minimum of a quarter, 3 months to 6 months in a fallback fund saved, that if something happens in your market or your industry and sales go down, you have the same expenses as all of those staff that depend on you, it's your responsibility to have 3 to 6 months at least saved. Now, that's money that you don't want to touch. You put that in a high yield savings account, you put it in an interest-bearing money market account, and you only touch that money if something happens in your reality that you no longer have income coming in and you need to still pay the bills, whether that's personal or business. So building a fallback fund is really the first pillar of creating the Brinks truck of your life. But we can't save it if we don't first earn it. So earning it first is key. Then you've got to save it. Once you're saving it and you have that fallback fund built, what do you need to do? You need to be paying yourself first. What does that mean? Investing money into your future. Now, the goal is to get to at least 25%. And in the book, I talk about the 30-30-30 rule. If you're not at a position right now that you can do that, what did I say in the very beginning? You got to develop the habit. You got to start with the behavior. You got to start with the first 5%. And if you can't right now tell me that you can't invest 5% or 10% in your future, I'll tell you one thing. The one key indicator, if you tell me that you can't invest 10% right now, it's that you're overspending. Because you're overspending for the amount of money that you earn, trying to look rich, going broke in the process. So if you can't take 10%, you either have a car that's too expensive for you, a house that's too expensive for you, you're eating out and that's too expensive for you, whatever it may be, you're trying to buy the fancy clothes and that's too expensive for where you are. You know, it's interesting. You guys see me and you can't because I have a desk right now, but I know everybody comments on my red bottom shoes or the jewelry that I have on or the watch that I wear. And oftentimes I actually have paused from time to time and think that I shouldn't wear those things because I think it's important that the people wearing them that you typically see should not be wearing them because they're making $100,000 a year and they're buying a $1,000 pair of shoes, or they're making $100,000 a year and they're buying a $10,000 watch. That is how you go broke very quickly. That is not how you build wealth. When you can start really stacking cash and really finding significance by the dollar amount that you're saving and investing in your bank account, you will be able to earn more money and create more wealth than anybody else in your circle because everybody else is consuming products. They're buying the phone that just comes out, but they don't have any money in the stock. They're buying the fancy purse, but they don't have any money in the stock. They're buying the fancy bottles of wine or the champagne, but they don't have any money in the stock, let alone investing outside of that into real estate and other areas. So the number one indicator that you can't pay yourself first and invest in your future, and you can't at least start with 10%, you need to take a real hard look at yourself and see, what are you spending too much on? Or what do you need to do in order to go and earn more? And look, every single person has different goals in life. Some people want to be billionaires. Some people want to have $100 million companies. Some people just want to have freedom. Some people just don't want to have to trade time for money. Some people want to just be able to take a vacation more than once a year and not have to put it on a credit card. None of those are right or wrong. It just depends on what you want your life to look like. The most important thing you can do is to have a plan of what you want your life to look like so that you can reverse engineer that goal and achieve anything that you want. But it really starts with taking a hard look at what your behaviors are now, what your habits are now, and how can you earn more so that you can save more in that Brinks truck so that you can invest more into your future. And we can go into a whole episode of how to invest money. There are so many different ways that you can invest, from real estate to traditional investments to IRAs and 401ks, depending on your situation, to tax-advantaged vehicles. But I think another key piece before we go into all of that, and we probably won't even for this episode because that's a whole 2-hour training. I have one on my site. I think it's still free. You can go to candyvalentino.com and download the whole, I think it was the wealth habits workshop we did. 2.5 hours of all the information you could ever possibly want about where exactly to invest your money, and depending on where you are in your journey, what to invest your money in first. But the most important part first, before you start investing and you start to get that spread, is you've got to eliminate bad debt. This is, again, one of those non-sexy things that people don't like to talk about. But just spending and increasing your bad debt, your credit card debt. Right now, I think the consumer average of Americans is over $100,000 in credit card debt. $100,000. And those same people aren't even making $100,000 in a year. That is going to take decades in order to pay off if you don't earn more money. Because the only way that you can ever start to invest is you've got to pay off the bad debt. Because you can never out-invest bad debt. 15%, 18%, which I believe is the American average right now. 18%. You can't get 9% in the market while you're paying 18% in bad credit card debt. So the very first thing you have to do is eliminate that, completely eradicate it, and then develop the habit to never use credit cards, ever. If you can't pay them off every single month, you should not be using a credit card. You should be using a debit card. And I hate debit cards. As you've heard me talk, debit cards don't have the same protection as a credit card. But if you don't have the discipline developed, you need to be on the debit system until you develop and adopt the discipline that you pay that credit card off every single month and you use it as a tool instead of it using you as a fool. Obviously, bad debt, just to cover it and wrap it up with a bow, is anything that depreciates. The car that you drive, the clothes that you wear, anything that you're buying that is not an investment. And look, there's a lot of people out there right now telling you bad debt, bad debt, bad debt. And then they tell you good debt on assets. But guess what? Here's the thing. And I'm not saying that they're wrong, right? A lot of people will tell you that bad debt is bad. And anybody that doesn't tell you that, run. But good debt, there needs to be a caveat. Because can you get good debt on assets, businesses, houses, rental properties, multifamily? Absolutely. Do I love those? Yes. Can there still be problems? Yes. You can go buy a business and that business can fail. You can go buy a property or try to flip a house and you do it in the wrong time or the wrong market and you lose money. I have a friend that has tens of millions of dollars in a real estate company who's been flipping, and he was losing massive amounts of money in the last 12 months because properties that were selling for more now are all of a sudden selling for less. People that were in the market are now waiting to see what happens with the interest rates. So you can get into a bad season really quickly and lose your ass. So good debt, yes, but you also want to be cautious. Because this was an interesting thing when I was on Ed Milet's podcast. Afterwards, we were both talking about money when I promoted the book Wealth Habits. That was the whole episode. If you didn't see it, go watch it. It was fantastic. He's an incredible interviewer. But one of the things we talked about off camera was how many people that he and I know that were once wealthy. They're not still wealthy. That we collectively knew more people who once had wealth than actually have it now. Why is that? Because people sometimes get too cocky with what they believe, and they think that they can still double down in all of these difficult times, but it takes one bad flip. It takes one bad rental. It takes one bad Airbnb to bring it all down unless you have significant wealth built and enough diversity to weather out all of those storms. So should you be investing? Yes. But do you need to make sure that you have eradicated your bad debt first? Yes. Should you make sure that if you have a business, you need to be making sure that you're working with a tax strategist, a CPA who understands how to reduce taxes. Otherwise, your second greatest expense other than bad debt will be overpaying in taxes and sending it all to the IRS. So those are a few key things that you need to do. And then, of course, you need to make sure that you are investing and you are growing, you are diversifying all of those. I talk about it in the book. All the ways that you can diversify your investments in order to build more stability. Because if you go all in one area, it is really tough to weather out the storms when that market or that cycle has any instability. I feel like I could go on this topic forever and ever and ever, but I wanted to keep this super short just so that you can really develop the habits, the tools, the principles to build more wealth this year. Guys, you're worth it. Your family's worth it. You are capable of it. You just have to learn exactly what to do. And the best way to do that is be surrounded by other people who have done it, who aren't trying to sell you some flashy thing. If you can't explain to me very easily what an investment is, what the payback is going to be, how long that is going to be held, I don't want anything to do with it. And you shouldn't either. Investing should be very simple. It should be something that you understand. And if you're not working with a professional that's explaining it to you in that way, or if you're trying to buy something from someone, a fund or whatever that may be, and they can't simply tell you what this is, what the return's going to be, and how long it's going to be held, I would caution you on investing. And if you don't have someone that you're working with as far as minimizing your taxes, making sure that you're keeping all of the money that you're making, then that's something that we can help you with. And I'm sure there's incredible other people. Just make sure that they're tax strategists and not a tax preparer. All right, guys, wishing you all the very best in this year, cheering you on. I hope that this is your wealthiest, your most successful, your happiest, and the greatest year that you've had in your life. Cheering you on every step of the way. God bless. We'll see you next time.